Hello General Hospital today will reveal the chaos building within the walls of Windemir has reached a boiling point. And recent developments in General Hospital have shaken the canvas of Port Charles once again, with the unexpected intersection of science, betrayal, and family loyalty unfolding across the island of Spoon. The question lingering on every viewer's mind is devastatingly clear. Did Lucas Jones kill Marco Rios to save his niece, Jocelyn Jacks? This shocking possibility stems from the increasingly tangled web surrounding the cold fusion, research taking place at Spoon Island, and the dangerous players involved in keeping that information buried, no matter the cost. What began as quiet suspicions has erupted into a perilous turning point, with lives hanging in the balance and truths refusing to stay hidden. Lucas Jones, once considered one of the more morally grounded residents of Port Charles, now finds himself at the center of a harrowing moral dilemma. For weeks, Lucas was blinded by affection and false hope, allowing himself to be swept into the magnetic charm of Marco Rios, a seemingly brilliant and charismatic lawyer who seemed to offer Lucas a second chance at love after the heartbreak he endured with Brad, in his desperation to rebuild a life with someone he believed was genuine. Lucas alienated his sister, Carly Spencer, ignoring her warnings and intuition about Marco's shadowy behavior. Carly, who has been down too many dark roads to be naive, sensed that something about Marco was disturbingly off. But Lucas chose romance over reason, pushing away the only family member who was trying to protect him from a looming threat. What Lucas failed to see until it was nearly too late was that Marco Rios was not just another charming con man. He was deeply entrenched in the corrupt empire of his father, Jens Sidwell. While Sidwell operated from the shadows, manipulating scientific breakthroughs for power and dominance, Marco had his own agenda, and it was no less lethal. His assignment to neutralize Sunny Corinthos wasn't just an offhand idea, it was a meticulously orchestrated mission, designed to destroy one of Port Charles's most powerful figures and destabilize the Corinthos family once and for all. But Marco's plan required more than muscle or manipulation, it needed access, trust, and proximity, which he gained with ease through his relationship with Lucas and indirect connection to Jocelyn. Unbeknownst to Lucas, Marco had been keeping tabs on the cold fusion research that had been quietly developing on Spoon Island. Jocelyn, driven by curiosity and her natural resilience, had taken it upon herself to investigate these secrets, sensing something larger was being hidden behind the facade of advanced scientific discovery. Her probing questions and growing interest in Sidwell's work made her a liability, and in Marco's eyes, liabilities had to be eliminated. He began to pressure Lucas into introducing him to more areas of Windemir, subtly nudging him toward the mansion's lower levels and the private laboratories that were rumored to house Sidwell's most sensitive experiments. Lucas, still under the spell of love, didn't immediately recognize the danger, until Marco suggested that Jocelyn join them on a late-night exploration into the mansion's catacombs. That single request set off alarm bells. Lucas had long accepted Marco's eccentricities, but something about the idea of dragging his teenage niece into a dark, secluded part of the estate felt inherently wrong. Carly's warnings resurfaced in his mind like echoes, and the illusion began to crumble. The moment of clarity was swift and brutal. Marco wasn't just using him, he was planning something dangerous, and Jocelyn was in the crosshairs. The confirmation came faster than Lucas anticipated. Caught off guard during an unannounced visit to the Spoon Island lab, Lucas overheard Marco having a heated exchange with Dr. Britt Westbourne, who had clearly discovered Marco's true agenda. Though the conversation was hushed, Britt's voice trembled with urgency and fear, and Marco's tone was anything but the romantic calm Lucas was familiar with. What was said exactly remains unclear, but the message was unmistakable. Marco was willing to kill to protect his father's interests. Lucas, torn between denial and horror, followed Marco back into the mansion, struggling to decide whether to confront him or find a way to quietly remove Jocelyn from danger. But time ran out. Marco, sensing his cover might be blown, cornered Jocelyn alone near the east wing of the estate, trying to manipulate her into sharing what she knew about the cold fusion project. He had underestimated her strength. Jocelyn resisted, fought back, and tried to run. The struggle that followed was short but violent, and it was in that moment, entering the hallway and witnessing Marco physically overpowering his niece, that Lucas acted. All pure instinct. He didn't think, he didn't plan, he simply reacted. When the dust settled, Marco lay motionless, and Jocelyn was shaken but alive. In the hours that followed, Windemir turned from a place of mystery into a crime scene cloaked in silence and confusion. Jocelyn was taken to General Hospital for evaluation, emotionally shaken but unharmed. Lucas, however, spiraled into an internal storm of guilt, shock, and disbelief. What he had done was born of love and protection, but it also marked the end of his innocence. He had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed, and no amount of justification could ease the weight of the action. Meanwhile, Dr. Britt Westbourne has gone silent, refusing to comment publicly on what she saw, though her involvement may become a critical part of the investigation that is surely coming. Sonny Corinthos, upon hearing the news, reportedly reacted with a mix of fury and vindication. For months he had suspected that Sidwell's operations on Spoon Island were more dangerous than they appeared. Now, with one of his own family members almost lost to the shadows of that island, Sonny's warpath is expected to reignite with a vengeance. He will want justice, answers, and above all, retribution, not just for what almost happened to Jocelyn, but for the long game Sidwell has been playing beneath everyone's noses. In a town like Port Charles, where secrets are currency and alliances can turn deadly, this latest chapter marks a dangerous new era. Lucas may be a hero in the eyes of some, but to others, he has now entered a realm of darkness from which few return unchanged. The investigation is only beginning, and the consequences, both personal and political, will unfold for weeks to come. For Jocelyn, the trauma may fade, but the betrayal by someone who should have been family will linger. For Lucas, the aftermath may prove far more damaging than the moment itself. And for the residents of Windemir, the silence of the halls now echoes with a single, chilling truth. No one is ever truly safe when love becomes a weapon, and loyalty is used to shield a lie. It isn't difficult to imagine Jocelyn Jacks defying every warning, every plea, and every logical voice around her as she crept into the damp, echoing corridors of Windemir's underground mausoleum. In her heart, family has always come before fear, and truth before safety. Her determination to uncover what Sidwell was hiding had consumed her for weeks. And now, with every whisper of conspiracy and danger circling the island of Spoon, she knew time was running out. Anna Devane had disappeared without a trace. Britt Westbourne had grown increasingly secretive. There were too many unanswered questions, and the only way to find the truth was to face it head-on alone, if necessary. The passageways beneath Windemir were more than just relics of a haunted past. They were now twisted into something else entirely, a labyrinth of secrets, of forbidden research, and perhaps even of lives dangling at the edge of survival. Jocelyn, young but not naive, had begun to suspect that Anna might be held somewhere within that suffocating maze. A woman like Anna wouldn't simply vanish. If she was still alive, Jocelyn felt she had a responsibility to help her, to free her from whatever nightmare Sidwell had built below the surface. But that mission became far more dangerous the moment Marco Rios entered the equation. Marco was never what he seemed, charming on the outside. He cloaked his allegiance to Jen Sidwell and the shady operations happening behind closed doors. His relationship with Lucas Jones had been meticulously constructed, not out of love, but out of strategic proximity to Sonny Corinthos, to Britt, to Carly, and eventually to Jocelyn. When Joss began asking the wrong questions, digging into the wrong files, and wandering near off-limits parts of the estate, Marco saw an opportunity to silence her under the guise of concern. Suggesting a trip to the catacombs wasn't an innocent gesture, it was bait, carefully disguised as curiosity. What Marco hadn't anticipated was Lucas following, not with suspicion, but with a mix of guilt and hope. Lucas had finally begun to question the inconsistencies in Marco's stories, the tension in his demeanor, the strange coincidences that always seemed to accompany Marco's presence. Still emotionally tethered, Lucas wasn't ready to confront the reality of betrayal, but he was willing to keep a quiet watch. So when he noticed Marco and Jocelyn slipping away into the deeper shadows of Windemir, he followed them down, silently, like a ghost, haunted by the fear that love had blinded him again. Down in the belly of the estate, things escalated quickly. Jocelyn, who had brought a flashlight and a camera, stumbled upon more than she expected, an old door concealed behind shelves of dust-covered books and broken furniture. Inside was a makeshift lab, beakers and vials, notes with equations, computers tracking experiments, and worse signs of restraint. Metal cuffs, torn fabric, a whisper of perfume that could only belong to Anna. Before she could retreat, she heard footsteps behind her. Marco had followed, and this time, there was no more charm, no more pretending. His voice was cold, calculated. The mask dropped completely. Jocelyn froze, Realizing she was not just a threat to his mission, she was a target. He demanded her phone, her camera, her silence. She refused. He lunged. The flashlight clattered to the floor, casting erratic shadows that danced across the walls like ghosts of decisions waiting to be made. In the chaos, Marco revealed a weapon, perhaps not a gun, but something capable of harm, capable of control. Lucas arrived seconds later, heart pounding, eyes wide. What he saw was enough to confirm everything he had refused to believe. His niece, cornered. Marco, unrecognizable. The man he had let into his life, his home, his bed threatening the very family Lucas had once pushed away for him. Time slowed, thought dissolved. All that remained was instinct. If Marco had a gun, would Lucas have hesitated, perhaps? But in that moment, it wasn't about weapons. It was about choosing between family and a man who had wrapped himself in lies. Lucas acted, whether it was by force or by accident, or in a moment of pure adrenaline. The result was the same. Marco collapsed, motionless. Jocelyn gasped for air, and Lucas stared not at a villain, but at the shell of someone he thought he loved, now lifeless at his feet. The choice Lucas made if he did indeed kill Marco wasn't just physical. It shattered something inside him. He had taken a life to save another. He had destroyed a piece of himself to protect the bloodline he once distanced himself from. And now he must live with the weight of that decision. Could he justify it to the police, to Sonny, to Carly, perhaps? But could he justify it to himself? That answer would haunt him longer than any investigation. Because Lucas had always believed in healing, in redemption, in love as a force of change. But now, standing in a forgotten lab beneath a cursed mansion, he realized that sometimes love is a weapon, and sometimes family must come before everything, even if the cost is unbearable. This moment, this impossible choice, may be the most defining one of Lucas Jones's life, and the implications ripple far beyond the underground of Windemir. Britt may now be exposed.